prophetic products. So when you go to that church, it will have a certain product like a prophetic oil, prophetic altar, prophetic mantle, prophetic bands, prophetic pictures, which are sold at a certain price.
So hello everyone, welcome to the channel, welcome to another exciting and very informative episode. Today we are going to be talking about something which you are quite familiar with, which is the new prophetic churches, yet you might not have a well-structured and a bigger picture of what this entails, how does it look like. So to help us to clear the picture, we do have a professor from UNISA, Professor Solomon. How are you?
I'm good, and you, sir?
I'm very well. So before we start with our interview, could you kindly just give us an overview picture of who you are, what do you do, and where you're located, family-wise, how does that look like?
My name is Professor Solomon Kgatle. I teach missiology at the Department of Christian Spirituality, Church History and Missiology at the University of South Africa, UNISA. I started teaching there in 2017 as a senior lecturer. In 2019, I became the associate professor, and most recently in 2021, a full professor. And I'm also a pastor. I've founded a church in Palaborwa, Divine Life Christian Center, and we have another branch here in Gauteng, in Midrand, and there are other several churches that I oversee or mentor. And I'm married and blessed with 4 daughters and a son. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could you also touch on the aspect of you being an author? I think the latest book that you have written is the one about Pentecostal theology, Pentecost and cultish. Could you give us some of information as to what those books are?
Yes, I've written quite a lot. There are popular books that I've written as well. And but with regard to Pentecostalism, I have 3 volumes that I have edited with other scholars, and with a leading Pentecostal scholar, Alan Anderson, from the United Kingdom. But I also have monographs. The first one was to introduce a movement that through observation, study, and also my experience as a Pentecostal, even before becoming a Pentecostal scholar, just as a Pentecostal in the Pentecostal tradition, a movement that I observed and through my experience saw that it is quite a different movement within the tradition that is very much different to other strands or sub-traditions within the Pentecostal tradition. And I introduced this movement as the fourth Pentecostal wave. That was my first book in 2019. And I wrote another volume on Pentecostalism and culticism to make intersections between what is culticism and what is Pentecostal. And I was arguing there that it's not easy just to declare one church or one movement cultist, but you will have to first study the cultist practices within that movement and be able to make your own conclusions. And most recently, there's a book on Pentecostal theology. But even in that book, I make a distinction between classical Pentecostal theology and Pentecostal theology as practiced by new prophetic churches. So those are my 3 books. And in all of them, the main focus was on the new movement, the new prophetic churches, which other scholars outside the tradition would call them cultists and will conclude that they are not Pentecostal. But as an insider, I see the importance of discussing them within the Pentecostal movement, even though they are quite distinct with other sub-traditions. I am currently working on a 4th volume where I will sharing how I study Pentecostalism and also as a way in which other emerging scholars can use to study Pentecostalism. So that is a volume that will be published this year. And also, lastly, I'm working on another that looks at Pentecostalism and politics, how Pentecostal pastors relate with politicians, and assessing how some of the prophets, because of their proximity to politicians, have been able to run away with crime or not account for their criminal acts. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a lot of work that you have done, and it seems like you still want to do more within the Pentecostal movement. Yeah, I'm glad that you didn't even mention the prices of your books, because when you see the prices, they can be quite discouraging somehow, especially for someone who's living in South Africa under such an economical situation. But anyway, let's get to the discussion of today. And I think the right start for us, it will be to define what do we mean, what does it entail for a church to be under new prophetic church. What is this new prophetic church? Can you give us a bit of history as to when did they start emerging, and also some examples of the most well-known ones?
Yes, new prophetic churches, like I said in our introduction, they are discussed within the Pentecostal movement. And the Pentecostal movement is distinct to other Protestant traditions, given their emphasis on the direct relationship with God through the work of the Holy Spirit. So the new prophetic churches, they take from that, and hence we see that they also talk about the baptism in the Holy Spirit. They talk manifestation of the Holy Spirit and other pneumatic experiences. However, what I found about these churches is that they emphasize the prophetic titles, whereas if you look at classical Pentecostal churches, they will talk about a reverend or a pastor. And when you go to other newer Pentecostals, what Alan Anderson calls new Pentecostal and charismatic churches in Africa, they will still talk about the fivefold ministry: the apostle, the prophet, the pastor, the teacher, and the evangelist. However, these new prophetic churches, they emphasize the prophetic titles. So in other words, all of them are bearing a prophetic title. And within that prophetic titles, they would have different kinds of titles that refer to prophetic titles. So they do not use the conventional title like reverend and pastor or the fivefold. And then they are also known for prophetic products. So when you go to that church, it will have a certain product like a prophetic oil, prophetic altar, prophetic mantle, prophetic bands, prophetic pictures, which are sold at a certain price. So although these kind of products, we find them in other traditions, but within this movement, they are more commercialized and they are more about the personality of the prophet. So some will bear the picture of the prophet, the different products, including t-shirts and so on. So that is one of the characteristics, and also what they call prophetic consultations, whereby a member will go and consult a prophet, which is not common in classical Pentecostal churches. You will go to church, the pastor will preach and lay hands upon you, and then that is done. Or maybe call you for a counseling and conduct a proper counseling. That is within classical Pentecostal churches. But in new prophetic churches, you pay a certain price and consult the prophet so that the prophet can give you a certain word. So it is prophetic diagnosis that goes with prophetic prescription. So for every problem that they are able to diagnose in your life, they will prescribe a certain product for your remedy. So that is, in a nutshell, the characteristics of new prophetic churches and I discuss them as a movement that is distinct from classical Pentecostal churches, which are more conventional, which are more traditional, but the churches that under discussion here today, they are more new. They have new characteristics and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and then within that, I think it will be helpful just to name some few of these churches as to their names and also the leader within that congregations. Some of the well-known ones. Examples of this NPC.
Yes, I don't think that it's a naming and shaming issue, but I think the audience, having described these characteristics, they will be able to pick up who are these new prophetic churches. And but what I can say is that they are very much common. They are not only found in South Africa. You can find them in Zimbabwe, in Southern Africa, in Botswana, here in South Africa. And by the way, I'm not the first scholar to talk about these churches.
Oh no.
I
Where's Professor?
still use this.
I think your net. Oh, is that load shedding or what? Man.